Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. A recent project I was working on required me to set up my saw blade at a specific distance from my saw sled stop. That is a bit of a tongue twister, by the way. And the problem with it was, I knew later on in the project I was going to need to come back to that same measurement. Now, I also, of course, needed my set square for other things as the project was progressing. I thought at the time it would be kind of interesting if I could make a stop for it. Just a simple stop. It was exactly the kind of concept here for the saw sled. Just a position marked so I can do repeat measurements. And I know there's a small problem with it, and that is if I need the set square for a specific measurement that is greater than where the stop is put. But I think it might come in handy from time to time, so I think I'm going to give this a shot and see how it turns out. Now, the initial clips for this, you saw I was setting it all up for some of the oak that I had salvaged from that rocker. And it's nice hardwood. But I remembered, as I was starting to work on that I had this. This is some apple, believe it or not, that I got from a good friend of mine. He wanted me to try it out. I was going to actually use it to make some drawer handles, but I hadn't worked with it yet, so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to use a small piece of it to see how it works, see how I can, shape it and stuff, and see if it's any good for this sort of project. Because there's going to be a little bit more stress on this than there would be on for a drawer handle. So as you can see here, it is roughly shaped. It's got a bit of wonkiness to it. It wasn't planed, perfectly square or anything. It was just roughing it out. And also, you notice the first cut I made, there was a bit of a crack. So I cut a little bit more off it, and it's nice and smooth now, so we're good. I'm going to cut off a chunk of this, and I'm going to take some pieces out of it. I'm going to make a number of these. I'm going to probably put together about 3 of them. I don't need that much of it, but I want to make sure, well, you're going to see here in a few seconds. Like I said, it's got a bit of wonk to it, which means I am going to have to put it through the milling machine, which is my only way of squaring these things up. And also you're going to notice right there, there is some damage from some bugs. Some worms have been crawling in some of this, so I may have to pick and choose the pieces that I'm cutting. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to set this all up. I'm going to pick the best ones, and then I'm going to start off at an oversized amount. I'm going to set them up and cut them for 2 inches. I don't need 2 inches, but that will allow me to cut them down to size after I've done certain operations. You're also going to notice here, I have yet to make a clamp for this. I'm still just using a piece of wood. It works perfectly fine. Keeps my fingers out of the way, which is what really matters. But I really do need to get to that. I need to get that project done, and hopefully it'll be one I'll work on soon. I keep thinking that I might be redoing my crosscut sled here, but it works really well. It cuts square. I mean, it's got some dings and nicks out of it, but again, it's not high on my priority list, so I'm not sure which will come first. So anyway, I've cut 3 pieces. I only need about 2 inches, as I said, so I'm going to look them over. There's some worm damage. You can see one right there to the left. You see a nice trail on it, so I will cut the other side off. And again, as I said, this allows me to pick the best parts of it, make sure there aren't any cracks or anything, and then cut this down and shape it and get it all set for the project. So far, I like it. The apple seems to be fine. Again, I haven't put any real stresses on it yet, so it'll be interesting to see how this wears, and of course how it stands up. And the other thing, of course, is how it will finish, to see what it looks like. And if you remember from the early videos, I keep forgetting to mention this every time I start the videos, one of the main reasons for the channel is to try new stuff out. Hence using a milling machine to do finishing on wood. I actually like it. It does have some disadvantages in the perspective of tear out, because the RPM is nowhere near what it is for any other devices designed for wood. It's a lot slower, but in this particular case, you can see it gives a nice finish. You can see the tear there, but that's not going to matter because I'm going to flip it around to the other side. And that part I just indicated with my finger. The reason I pointed out that is part of the original section that was not true. So that's going to get all taken off, and we're going to have a nice flat piece. And even though this is being sped up, it doesn't take any time at all. Once I have it set, it works, and that's all there is to it. And I can put all 3 pieces through. And as you can see, it comes out nice and square, but that's just eyeballing it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold up against the straight edge here, and you're going to see that, again, it is nice and flat and true, which is the important bit. I mean, milling machines are designed to work with metal. And you can cut metal down to, this particular machine, to within probably 2 or 3 thousandths of true. But wood's not that easy to work with that way. You can't trim off 1/1000th of an inch. It just doesn't work in the same sort of ways, because it has fibers, and again, like I said, it's not exactly designed for this sort of thing, but because it doesn't necessarily mean to be anywhere near that accurate, it is perfectly fine. It works out nicely, and any little bit of splinters or whatever that comes off, or little fibers that seem to get knocked out of place, a little bit of sanding, it's perfectly good. So, and I'm showing you all this, and that's how fast that is. By that is in regular speed. It doesn't take any time at all. So out of that, I got 2 pieces that I really liked. The third one I'm not going to be bothered using. And just to show you that it is relatively close in being, exactly the same size, I'm going to measure one up here. I'm going to put down the little thumb, lock it in place, and we're going to put the second one in. And you're going to see that they are more than close enough for this. And by the way, this doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form. This is just me trying it out, seeing if I like it, seeing if I can get accuracy with it. Obviously, this is not going to end up having any kind of bearing on the project, because they could be off by quite a bit, and it'll still work perfectly fine. So I've set these up to be square. Again, at this point, not important. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have to remove too much material later on in the project after I cut the groove out of this. This is one thing that the milling machine is very good for. I can remove a very specific amount of depth from this, because I want to remove obviously half the thickness of the ruler plus just a little bit, because I want a little bit of ability to slide this in and out without it being forced. So I'm going to run this down through here. This is a 7/8 inch, so I am going to need to move it over a little bit, because the set square I'm setting this up for has a 1 inch ruler, so it needs to be a little bit loose off top of that. So as you can see here, there's a little bit of tear out. Again, not a big deal, because I can sand that off with ease. I just want to make sure that the trough I'm cutting is nice and has a nice sharp edge. And you notice at the end of that last clip, I had noticed that there was a little bit of deflection, because again, this is not metal, this is wood. It was bending up just a tiny amount. I noticed it ever so slightly when I looked at it, when I got down low and I looked at the trough I was cutting. It was a little bit not square, so I'm going to clamp down the other side, and this will definitely hold it in place, because there's very little pressure being put on this. It was just enough, though, with the clamp that it was deflecting a little bit without it. So now that's in place, I am going to run this through, get it all down to proper depth, and then we're going to slide in the ruler. It slides nicely. I mean, I'm very happy with this. You can see there's very little in the way of wiggle in this. It has to be a little bit, of course, because there has to be a bit of free play in it. So there you go. That is the trough cut. I'm going to sand those down, and here you go. All that's left for this particular video, because I like to keep these videos relatively short. I am going to glue this together, and then I can do the rest of the finishing up for this in the next video. Like I said, I'm happy with it at this point. The glue up's obviously quite straightforward. I am going to put some pins in this. I may have to cut the pins down just to make them a little bit thinner. I'm not sure. I haven't decided that part yet, but we'll get to that. And of course, once this is all set up, I can't have both sides as being square. Well, actually, that's not true. I could probably get away with this being completely square. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make one at 45 and one at square, and that way I can use it for both sides. That's the plan anyway. I want to see how that works out. So just leave comments. Let me know what you think of all this. I cut most of this part out because I'm doing the glue up, and It was off camera. I was just making sure I got it done properly. But you're going to see the end result here in a second, and then that's it. And then, like I said, next video I am going to make some adjustments, and I have to use one of the the threaded fittings that I bought before. I'm going to use those, but I have to cut one down, so that's also going to be involved in that. Again, thank you for watching. Leave comments, and I'll see you next video, and bye for now.